Let's talk about conspiracy theories and defending a rigid belief for a moment. So, right now it is Wednesday, October 9th, and Hurricane Milton is going through Central Florida. I have a very special friend over there, and I've been watching the storm on radar and watching the weather observations pretty consistently. So, for those of you who don't know, my previous career was as a weather forecaster for the United States Air Force. I was in there for 8 years. I've forecasted weather for places all around the world. And I mean literally all around the world. I've forecasted for Japan. I've forecasted for Iraq. I've forecasted for Korea a few times. Like wildly different places. Diego Garcia out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, Hawaii, Guam. I've forecasted weather for all of these places. Kuwait was another one. So you get a pretty good handle on how the weather works after a while. So, one thing I've been seeing a lot of with this current hurricane and the past hurricane that was a week or two ago, Helene, did a lot of damage, and we're going to touch on Helene too. I've been seeing a lot of these conspiracy theory mess out there. And so I want to touch on that as someone who has worked in that field. You know, they're always saying, "Oh, well, the government is controlling the weather and all of that." Think about who would be doing that. It would have been the United States Air Force weather area. If anyone was controlling the weather, we would know. Just hands down, we would know it. They wouldn't keep that information from us because it's literally needed to do our job and protect multi-million dollars of aircraft, billions of dollars of aircraft, and millions of people that are relying on those aircraft and relying on the warnings and watches and advisories that we put out for the weather. There is a reason why in our major briefings, weather goes like second or third in the order of importance in those briefings. Okay, this is what they don't tell you about the weather in the military and how important that stuff is. So I'm seeing all of these conspiracies, and I'm like, okay, look, if the government was controlling the weather, we would literally have to know about it in order to be able to do our job. Straight up. Because it would produce such off variables that we wouldn't be able to accurately forecast at all. And let me tell you something. When it comes to accuracy on forecasts, there is no one greater than the U.S. Air Force. And I say that because, or let me rephrase that. There is no one greater than aviation weather forecasters. Because it's not just the Air Force, but aviation weather forecasters are the best on the planet, and I'll tell you why. When you get places like the National Weather Service, they forecast for a very broad area. So, I live in Paris, Texas. The National Weather Service home office, I believe, for us is in Dallas. The forecast area is all of Northeast Texas. Okay, so when they say a 30% chance of rain, What they're referring to is that whole forecast area. The Air Force's area is 5 miles. And I know that doesn't sound like much, you know? It's like, oh, well, they're forecasting for a much smaller area, so they don't have to be as accurate. Wrong. We have to be pinpoint accurate. Down to the hour. And this isn't just Air Force, this is aviation weather. We have a 5-mile radius that we have to pinpoint our forecasts for. And it is very different than a broad area forecast. We don't deal in percentages. If you look at an Air Force forecast on an aviation channel, on an aviation website, they will have a coded forecast called a TAF. And on that TAF, for most civilian sites, you'll see a probability. For Air Force sites, you will see what's called a becoming group. And it is a 1-hour stretch of transition weather. We have to forecast that stuff down to an hour. And if it is not in that criteria within half an hour of that time period expiring, we have to fix it. We have 30 minutes. This is why we are the best. So if there was anyone modifying the weather in any way, we would literally have to know about it. We would know about it even if we weren't told, because it would be radically different than what the data in the atmosphere is showing. This is how we do our forecast. We look at the raw data that the atmosphere is showing us, and we can deduce what is going to happen from that raw data. Now, that's overgeneralizing it, but yeah. Okay. Really, really overgeneralizing it is saying we are predicting the future of a dynamic fluid mass. This is what we do. Weather modification in that aspect would be like a glaring flag for us. We would spot it immediately. And if it was something that was being done, we would be the ones to do it. We would have to be. Because we would have to coordinate such flights. It does not exist. It's not fucking real. Is cloud seeding real? Yes. But let me tell you about cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is completely different from amplifying a storm, especially a storm on the scale of a hurricane. You cannot do it. So cloud seeding works basically like this. My fellow weather nerds, feel free to check me on this. Cloud seeding is not my forte. Okay, and it's been a while since I've been out of weather, so I might be a little out of practice. Check me on it if I'm wrong. Okay? Thank you. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. So cloud seeding works basically like this. When it rains, when water vapor condenses, it needs something to lock onto. Those are what we call cloud condensation nuclei. They are tiny bits of dust, smoke sometimes, ice crystals, things like that. Okay? So, the Cloud condensation nuclei are what captures that and allows it to condense, especially ice. Ice is really good at this. So the way cloud seeding works is if you've got the right conditions, if you've got enough convective lift, and you've got enough moisture, you've got instability, but you also need a trigger. You need something for that moisture to latch onto. And so on a hot, moist day, a hot, humid day with no clouds in the sky, you got no trigger. You got nothing there, nothing to spark the process. So with with cloud seeding, what you get is you add a trigger. You add something to the mix. I think in this case it's silver iodide, supercooled silver iodide or something like that. And what it does is it gives that moisture something to latch onto, and thus starting the process. Now, that's not adding any energy into the atmosphere. In fact, it's taking it out. And once it starts to take out, it's going to trigger a feedback loop as those drops get bigger and bigger and bigger and more condense around each other. It's going to trigger a feedback loop, and it's going to rain. That is a very simplified version of it, but I think that's about right. I might be missing a few steps there. But in general, that's it. That's the process. It's technologically relatively simple. Okay, we have the technology to do that, yes. Adding energy to the atmosphere is a completely different story. Okay, a totally different story. So, in order for a storm to develop, it needs convective available potential energy, what we call CAPE. Okay, and this is the ability for air to move up in the atmosphere. It's the potential energy for the air to move upwards in the atmosphere. You can have a whole lot of that, but if you have nothing to kick it off, you're not going to get anything. Okay, if you don't have something for that moisture to latch onto, you're not going to get anything. It's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, it's going to be muggy, and it's going to be completely clear. So, in order to make a storm bigger, you have to give it more lift. You have to give it more and more energy, this convective available potential energy. The more you give it, the stronger that storm is going to be. That is measured in kilojoules. Thousands of joules of energy. We are not remotely on the level to amplify a thunderstorm at will. Okay? Like, at all. It's insane how much energy we're talking here. So, and let me give you some numbers here. Over the course of a day, a single day, the average hurricane puts out 5.2 times 10 to the 19th joules a day. That is about 200 times what we as a global society can produce in electricity. Over the course of its lifetime, of a hurricane's lifetime, on average, which is about a week or so, it puts out enough energy to rival 10,000 nukes. We are not on this level, people. We're not on this level. I know you think we're badass, but we're not that badass. And meteorologists have been trying to explain this for years. But y'all still want to do this government conspiracy shit. And it's just dumb. When you realize the scale and how weather works, it's just dumb. The whole thing falls apart. And then you get people talking about HARP up in Alaska. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that's putting the energy in the atmosphere. And you're like, okay, hold up. First off, we don't have that kind of energy. And second, HARP studies the ionosphere. The ionosphere has nothing to do with the weather at all, except the occasional flash of lightning that can reach high enough to get that high. And that's not that often. It literally has nothing to do with the weather. But you know what it does have everything to do with? Radio communication. Because when we send up radio waves, they bounce off the ionosphere. And anyone with an inkling of knowledge of weather or radio communication would understand that this is not how things work. But yet, this is what y'all want to believe. And you don't believe it because you have any real solid evidence of it. You believe it because Joe Schmo on Facebook told you so. Or because you saw a contrail one day in the sky, which forms the exact same way as cloud seeding does, mind you. That's how it works. Water vapor from jet exhaust condenses in the atmosphere, forms ice crystals. Those ice crystals glom onto other ice crystals, and boom, now you've got a cloud. This is how it works. This is how nature works, people. Nobody's spraying fucking chemicals. We're not worth spraying chemicals on. Do you ever think about that? They don't need to spray chemicals. They've got social media to dumb you down. They're keeping you locked in a 9-to-5 job so that you can do nothing but survive, and they're jacking up the rent so high that you can barely afford it. They don't need to spray chemicals on you. They don't. And you know that. You know that. Shame on you for denying it. Shame on you for lying to yourself. You know it's bullshit. That's why it makes you angry. Because you want to believe it so badly that you can almost fucking taste it. You can almost fucking make it reality. You want to believe it so badly. But no. Deep down, deep under all that anger about me calling your shit out, you know it's bullshit. Because you know, we know how the weather works. Generally speaking. And you know that I'm right, that we are not on that level. You know that. That's why it makes you angry. I said I was going to come back to Helene. As I've already said, we are not on the level to enhance a hurricane. So what happened with Helene? Simply put, Helene got stuck in the mountains. That's it. That's literally it. Hurricanes are big, lumbering, powerful beasts. But the funny thing is, they are very delicate. They don't move on their own, except a little bit under their own force of rotation. But for the most part, they ride the high pressure systems. They don't move on their own. Too much wind shear aloft up in the upper levels will tear them apart. They can't survive over land. They need water 200 feet deep, and I want to say about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, just to stay going. These are delicate, delicate storms. They're powerful as hell, but they are very, very delicate in their sustainability. I once watched a tropical storm hit the Big Island, and it literally got lodged up against the mountain for 6 hours before its own rotational movement was able to dislodge it. I'm not kidding on that. I laughed my ass off because I thought, here is this massive storm, and it gets stuck. And that's exactly what happened with Helene. Is it went up into the mountains. And what happens when you've got winds blowing over mountains is that the mountains push the air up. It pushes it upward. And upward moving air condenses. Okay, we call this orographic lift. It condenses. It provides that trigger. So, what happens when you've got additional lift on an already powerful hurricane? You get more rain. In the meantime, that lift, original lift, has lost its heat source. So all of that extra rain that's up there is coming down. North Carolina got caught under a dying storm, basically, because it got stuck in the mountains. That's it. And my heart is out for all the people in North Carolina. But the government did not do this. This is just how nature works. There is a very good reason that I describe weather as a crazy psycho girlfriend. Because some days she's beautiful. Beautiful blue skies, rainbows. She's gorgeous. And then the other days, she's a psycho bitch. And see, the worst thing is, us weather guys, we're like, oh yeah, no, I love the weather. She's awesome. This is how it works, guys. Like, really. I'm calling the conspiracy theorists out. But I feel you. I feel you, man. How cool would it be to be able to control the weather? Like, so many times in the military we talked about this. So many times. And how we would use it if we could. Oh yeah, if we could do it, trust me, we could come up with some damn creative ideas on how to weaponize the weather if we wanted to. If we could control the weather, this isn't what you'd see. You'd see localized hailstorms, okay? You would see supercells popping up over enemy areas and dropping tornadoes, okay? That's the kind of shit you'd see. You wouldn't see us attacking our own people. Come on, guys. Trust me, if we could weaponize weather, oh, we'd have so much fun with it. We would have a blast with that. Are you kidding me? Every weather nerd on the freaking planet would be studying that shit. Because that shit excites us. If we could control the weather, oh, you'd better know every weather hobbyist would be leaning into it. That's how obvious it would be if the weather was being controlled. Learn physics, guys. Learn how these things work. Like, if you want to believe a conspiracy, believe a conspiracy. I can't stop you. I really can't. But, dude, you gotta take a look at that belief, man. It's just silly. It really is. So, I've talked about looking at those beliefs. And I'm not just going to give you guys ridicule. I am going to give you ridicule. I'm judging. I'm judging hard. But I will say this. There's nothing wrong with having a belief. But don't be afraid to challenge it. If you cannot challenge a belief, pick it apart, look at it element by element and say, does this line up with what I know to be true? If you cannot do that with a belief, you don't need to have it. You have to be able to refine that belief. Because if you believe something and you pull it apart and you find out what's true about it and what is not, what is left will be the gold. It will be the core of that understanding. It will be truth. And when you find truth, then you hold on to it. Because it's no longer a belief at that point. It's an understanding. We believe stuff when we don't understand it. Truly understand it. We may think we understand it. But when it comes to really, really looking inward at it, we find that we don't understand as much as we thought we did. And that goes for everything. I know hundreds of guys who know weather far better than I do. I'm not that good at it, honestly. And this is why I said at the beginning of this, weather people, check me. I know that I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to. But I understand enough to try to explain it. Again, weather people can check me, and they can verify or falsify what I'm saying. Gladly, I will take that. If I am wrong on something, I will take that. And I will refine what I know to be true. I will cross-check it, yes. Make sure that what I am receiving is correct. But if it is indeed correct, I will take that in and I will refine what I know to be true. That's the process. I'm not going to double down on my belief that I'm right. That's the process. But that's what you guys do when you throw these conspiracy theories out there. This is what beliefs do. This is why holding beliefs is so damn detrimental. It's one thing to have a belief. It's another thing to not be able to challenge it. To say, what if I'm wrong? If you cannot ask yourself, what if I'm wrong about what I believe? You don't need to have that belief. Because at that point, if you cannot challenge a belief, it is not a belief, it is indoctrination. You're just going along with what you've been told. This is why this stuff is so important. Because now we've got conspiracy theories pointing to the dumbest possible stuff. Stuff we are not even on a level technologically to do. And yet you've got people believing this left and right. I've come across this on my feed on Facebook so many times over the last 2 weeks. It's been ridiculous. From random people. I've talked to a couple of people about this and tried to explain it. And always I'm met with the same conspiracy theories. And no one can explain how this actually works. It's just a they. The government. Who? Because I was United States Air Force weather. If there was anybody doing it, it would be us. And we are not doing it. We can't do it. We don't have that technology yet. Okay, and even if we did, it would be so blatantly obvious to any trained weather forecaster or meteorologist. It's just, no. No. You can't have a thunderstorm just pop up in the middle of nowhere without us noticing it. It's just not going to work that way. When weaponized weather becomes a thing, it's going to be very, very obvious. Oh my God. Y'all got me ranting and raving about this thing, man. I swear. Like, it just baffles me, man. It really does. It totally baffles me that you can have someone who, I'm not even an expert in my field, not even close. I am an amateur at this, and it's blatantly obvious. Okay, I've got 8 years of experience, but I mean, there are people with multiple degrees in this crap. Okay? Like, I'm an amateur and this is blatantly obvious. Like, really? Oh, man. Oh, man. Wow. Wow, man. Like, I can't fathom it, man. I really can't. I can't fathom being that stuck on a belief to the point where when something is blatantly wrong with it, you cling to it anyway. I mean, I guess I can in a way, because that's the same thing that happens with religion. But even then, over something so dumb, Like, really? The government doesn't need to poison you. They don't need to weaponize the weather. Okay? You poison yourselves. You poison yourselves with Facebook and worrying about what everyone else is thinking. You poison yourselves with shitty ass food. You poison yourself with constant TV, with always being glued to smartphones. This is how you poison yourself. They don't need to poison you. All they need to do is keep you happy, keep you numb, comfortably numb. Hello? Is there anybody in there? That's it, man. They don't need to poison you. They've gotten you to poison yourself. Toxic relationships that you keep getting into over and over and over again. You know I'm right. Cult leaders in politics, basically. Like, really? Come on, man. I swear, man, sometimes I feel like I'm on the outside looking in at humanity, and it baffles me. It always has, ever since I was little. Y'all do some dumb shit. And I'm not saying I don't either, but I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Cost of being an outsider, I guess. I don't know. I've always felt that. But yeah, no, y'all are poisoning yourselves. We are poisoning ourselves with the ways we interact with each other. So many toxic relationships. Why? Because we're toxic with ourselves. And this is getting ready to all come back to what I've been teaching. We're toxic with ourselves because we refuse to know ourselves. We refuse to sit with ourselves. And having a society that locks people in survival mode makes it that much harder to sit with ourselves. Because we've got to focus on everything else. We live in a society driven by fear. A fear of knowing ourselves. So we do everything we can not to. We have produced a society that uses that and perpetuates it to churn out good little workers. This is what we live in. We are afraid of our own potential. We are afraid to look within ourselves and face the things that we keep running from. When's the last time you sat with yourself? No, really. When's the last time you sat with yourself? When's the last time you allowed yourself to listen to your thoughts? And I don't mean ruminate over them. I don't mean go over the same damn thought over and over and over again like we usually do. I'm talking about just listen. Don't pay it any mind. Just listen. Let it say what it has to say, and then change the channel. Let it flow away. It's trying to speak to you. You're ruminating over the same thought over and over and over again because you won't listen to it. You won't do what it's telling you need to do. Or you won't listen to the alert that it's giving you. If you're in a toxic relationship, you know you're in a toxic relationship. You know that. You know deep down in your heart that something's not right. This isn't how I want to be treated. But yet you stay. Oh, it's hard. Yes, it is hard. It's hard to look at that emotion and acknowledge it and say, this is not what I want. It's hard to do that. You're right. It absolutely is. But it's necessary. It is absolutely necessary. You have to be able to look at that thought, look at that emotion, and re-experience it. And it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. But when you have processed it, then you can let it go, or you can act on it, or you can resolve it. Whatever the case may be, you resolve what you can, change what you can, accept what you can't, and move on. And this doesn't mean you don't feel the emotion. You just don't get stuck on it. You don't allow it to stick to you. Because that's kind of what it does. It sticks to you. And you carry it around. And it's noticeable. Contrary to what you believe, it is noticeable. Especially when you've got a lot of it on you. There is a weight that carries in your body language. It's noticeable. Especially to people who had been traumatized early on in their life and have developed a hypersensitivity to emotions, to reading body language. There are people out there like that. I'm one of them. We can sense it. When you carry those emotions around on you like that, we can sense it. We can, I won't say see it. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a smell, almost, with people that are really, really strong with it. It's almost like a smell. It's like a sense. Like you don't really see it or touch it or feel it or anything like that. It's like a gut feeling. It's weird. But it's in little cues in your body language. Okay? The way you carry yourself, the way you speak. Okay, I'm not saying it's some magic empath thing. It's you notice the little details of their body and you take this all in at once, faster than you can even process it. And it gives you this sense of offness about the person. We can sense it. And the average person can too. They may not have the cognitive faculties to explain it, But people can sense it around you. And they will treat you according to the way you display yourself, the way you treat yourself. It flashes like a big banner. Hey, I'm a victim. Hey, I'm insecure. Hi, insecure, I'm desperate. This is what it does. It's nonverbal communication. That's it. And how you treat yourself is how others will treat you. And I'm not saying you deserve how people treat you. I want to make that very, very clear. You do not deserve that. But you have to know who you are. Set those boundaries. Enforce them. Nobody should be a victim of anything. I started this conversation on hurricanes and conspiracy theories. Gotta love ADHD, huh? But it all lines up. It all connects. It all connects. Because in order to break the whole mindset of conspiracy theories, you have to be able to challenge the belief. In order to challenge the belief, you have to piece it apart and look at it. And look at what is true individually. And to be able to do that, you got to be able to look at yourself. You have to be able to go inside yourself and see, okay, who is it that's asking this? Why do I want to know? Why do I feel like I need to know everything? Why do I feel like I need to be right about everything? Why am I afraid to be wrong? Why am I afraid to be seen by others? Why do I think everyone else is judging me? They're not, by the way. Not usually, anyway. In fact, when you're doing something out of the norm, they're usually thinking, wow, I wish I could do that. This is why I tell fellow actors all the time when they talk about stage fright. I'm like, every single one of those people paid to come and see you. They're not judging you. They love you. That's why they came to see you, because they wish they could do that. A lot of them do. Not all of them. Some of them are just there for the show. But they admire what you can do. Nobody's judging you. And when you know yourself, when you take the time to sit still and learn to know yourself, and I mean really, really get to know the one person that you spend your entire life with. You. But this is the person that we are most afraid of. This is the one we're most afraid of them all. We're afraid of looking different and standing out, but we're afraid of being ourselves. So knowing yourself. Because knowing yourself means you can challenge your beliefs. And challenging your beliefs is one of the first steps on that process. And when you can challenge your beliefs, nothing slips by you. Because you can look at what it is you believe and say, is this true? Do I really believe this? And when you can say that and say, no, I don't actually believe this part of this. I believe this part, but I don't believe the other part. You know what? Let's throw that out. You can do that. Contrary to what the tribe says, you don't have to swallow the whole shit. I have no idea where that came from, but I stand by it. You don't have to swallow the whole shit. Oh my God, I love that. Sometimes I catch myself off guard, and it is glorious. ADHD for the win. Oh, you don't have to take the whole thing at once. Okay, you don't have to take the whole thing. This is why there are 1,000 different ways to believe the same thing. Look at how many denominations there are in Christianity, and they all believe something slightly different. You don't have to believe the whole thing. The variation in belief in and of itself shows that. And it also shows that there's a lot of false information. So you need to sort through it, get to the core of the belief, and figure out what it is. And if you say you know it off the top of your head, you probably don't. Not if you believe it that fervently. I'm just going to be real with you and say that straight up. If you actually knew it, you wouldn't believe it. Because believing is what we have in place of knowledge. And the knowledge is there. There is knowledge inside of beliefs. I literally study the cusp of what every religion is saying. I study the psychology of religion. And I'll tell you this, it's a beautiful thing once all the mess is peeled back. I find it gorgeous. The core messages underneath are beautiful. Does that make me believe in God? No. Not really. Do I understand those messages? Yes. Do I understand what they're talking about? Yes, as best as I can. I've still got a lot to experience. But does that mean I make it about the belief? No. I don't have to believe to understand. I don't have to believe to admire the intent behind it. So that's why conspiracy theories are dumb. I'm going to get back to the point and I'm going to close on this. So, yeah. These conspiracy theories, they're just... Some conspiracy theories are true. They have come out to be true. That is knowledge. We know that. So I'm not saying every conspiracy theory is bunk. I don't have enough expertise or knowledge to say yay on or nay on that. What I can debunk is the weather ones, as least to the best of my ability. And the whole modifying the weather thing is just silly. It really is, guys. I know you want to believe it. I know it sounds cool. It sounds like something the government would do, because it is something the government would do if they could. But you gotta realize from a weather perspective, it would be, again, so obvious. So obvious. Like, really. We are not on that level. And again, they don't need to. And I'm talking about that specifically with the whole chemtrails thing. It's dumb. Okay? If you see a plane spraying something, it's either a jet, with contrails, or a crop duster, with something with probably poison in and of itself. Okay, there's your guys right there. Go for them. The pesticide people, the crop dusters. Don't go for the crop dusters, please. Just they're just doing their jobs. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. I'm sure that job is hard enough. But yeah, like, they don't need to poison you, dude. They really don't. They've got you to poison yourself. They really have. They don't need to blow up, make hurricanes blow themselves up, and intensify. Okay, they don't need to do that on our own land. They don't need to, and they can't. 10,000 nukes. The energy a hurricane will put off over its lifetime. This means you can nuke a hurricane and it will shrug it off. That is the level of energy we're talking in order to modify a hurricane. We are not even close to that level. Okay, there's probably 10,000 nukes in total on the planet. And a hurricane can produce that in a week. These are the kind of energy dynamics that are on a planetary scale. We are not even close. Not even close. We will be able to do that when we are a Kardashev 1 species. A species that can tap into its global energy. We are 0.5 at best. At best, and I wouldn't even say that. Mentally, we're like 0.001. God. Oh, all right. I'm going to close. It's been fun talking with you guys. Even the conspiracy theorists. I'm giving you shit, but I still love you. Okay? Just because I don't believe what you believe doesn't mean I don't love you. And I want to make that very clear. And I think this is one of the first talks that I've done specifically for the outside audience. So I want to thank you guys for listening to my wild ramblings. Who knows? Maybe I'll do this as a podcast or something. I don't know. I usually make these for me so I can come back and listen to on days when I'm forgetting shit. Because, yeah, it happens. But I post them out so that people like you can listen. Because I have fun doing these. I really do. Okay? I love the free form, just jabbering kind of talks that I do. They're so much fun. So So I need to do more like this. Maybe I don't know, cover more current events or something. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you all for listening to my wacky little podcast, I guess. So, conspiracy theorists, did we learn anything? Good. Because if you're still here, that means you want to be here. If you haven't gone and shit on me in the comments by now, which I'm sure you guys are gonna do, hey, that's okay. I can back up every single thing I've said today. Bet you can't. You guys have a good night.